Today, we're diving into a really deep and, honestly, kind of mind-bending idea from a classic Buddhist text, the Diamond Sutra. It's a concept that completely flips our whole understanding of hardship and misfortune right on its head. So, let me just start with a provocative question for you. What if the very things we all try to avoid, criticism, bad luck, being looked down on by others, what if those things were actually a fast track to clearing away our spiritual baggage? I know it sounds pretty strange, but stick with me, because that's the core idea we're going to unpack today.
And here it is, straight from the source itself. The Diamond Sutra basically says that if someone who really tries to live by this teaching gets mistreated or slighted, that very experience acts like a purifying fire. It literally burns away past negative karma that would have otherwise led to way, way more suffering down the line.
I mean, this is the ultimate blessing in disguise, right? It's an idea you actually see in other concepts too, like the Korean phrase "Junhwa Wibuk," which means turning a disaster into a blessing. Or even the folk belief of ektam, where some small unlucky thing happens and you think, okay, well, that just prevented a much bigger catastrophe. The sutra is basically saying this principle is real and it works on a huge cosmic scale.
Okay, now this is where it gets really wild. The sutra doesn't just present this as some nice philosophical idea. It claims that the merit, you could think of it as spiritual reward, that you get from simply understanding and holding on to this teaching is so huge it's almost impossible to believe. To really put this into perspective, the Buddha himself sets up this comparison you're looking at right now. On one side, you have the merit you'd get from making offerings to a truly astronomical number of Buddhas over countless lifetimes. On the other side, the merit you get from just reciting and internalizing this one single teaching. And here's the kicker. The sutra claims the merit on the right is so much greater that the other one doesn't even come close. We're talking not even 1% or 1 in a millionth of the value. It's just staggering.
And just so we're all clear on the scale here, the numbers being used are intentionally mind-boggling. Anasamkhya is a word for a number so big it was considered innumerable. Anayuta is somewhere in the hundreds of trillions. So we're talking about a scale of time and quantity that is just beyond what our brains can really wrap themselves around.
You know, the Buddha knew this would be a tough pill to swallow. He says right there in the text that if he were to spell out the full extent of this merit, people would probably get confused, maybe even suspicious and disbelieving. He's basically telling us, look, I know this sounds crazy, but the reality of it is beyond what you can even imagine. Which, of course, leads us to the next big question. What is going on here? Is there some kind of magic spell hidden in the words? Why would understanding one idea be more powerful than eons and eons of devoted religious practice? Well, the answer seems to come down to the difference between form and substance. Making offerings, performing rituals, those are physical, external actions. They're a kind of religious form. And while they're important, the sutra is arguing that the real goal is to internalize the truth it contains. It's the lived understanding, that deep shift in your perspective, that holds the real transformative power, not just going through the motions. Okay, but hang on a second. This brings up a huge classic problem, one you've probably thought of yourself. If karma is this law of cause and effect, then why do we see good, honest, sincere people suffer, while some pretty terrible people seem to be doing just fine? It's a really fair question, and it can make the whole idea of karma feel like it just doesn't add up. So, before we get into the answer, let's just make sure we're on the same page with karma. At its simplest, it's the law of cause and effect. Good causes lead to good results, bad causes lead to bad results. The key to the whole puzzle, though, is all about the timing. See, the effects of our actions don't always pop up right away. It's not like an instant bank deposit or with withdrawal. The source material explains that karmic results work on a much longer and much more complex timetable. And this slide breaks that timetable down really nicely. There are basically 3 main ripening periods. First, you've got karma that bears fruit right here in your current life. Then you have karma that ripens in your very next life. And finally, there's karma that might not show up for many, many lifetimes, way off in the distant future. And that is the answer to our question. When we see a good person suffering, what we might actually be seeing are the consequences of a past life's actions finally coming due. And on the flip side, someone who's prospering even though they're acting horribly, well, they could just be coasting on the good karma from a previous life that just hasn't run out yet.
But here's the most important part, the really empowering piece of this whole puzzle. This does not mean that we're just puppets of our past. The system isn't rigid. It is not some unchangeable fate. We have agency, and there are very clear ways to influence our own path.
So, how do we actually change our karmic trajectory? Well, the texts give us a roadmap. Through practice, doing good things and trying to understand this wisdom, we can actually lighten a heavy karmic load. Through repentance, we can actively work to clean up past negativity. And most importantly, by shifting our perspective, we can see hardship not as a punishment, but as the very process of purification that the Diamond Sutra was talking about right at the beginning.
And it all comes down to this absolutely beautiful idea from the commentary. When our mind is aligned with wisdom and compassion in every single moment, our entire experience of reality transforms. The challenges don't just vanish, but our relationship to them changes so deeply that any place, any situation can become a place of peace. So we'll end by turning this question back to you. According to this ancient wisdom, the answer is a definite yes. It suggests that the very things we struggle with, the moments we feel slighted or knocked down, might not be roadblocks at all. They might just be opportunities in disguise, clearing the path for something far, far greater. It's a challenging idea for sure, but it's a pretty powerful one to think about.